How would you like to do a property deal and then find out the HMRC are after you for £4 million in unpaid stamp duty? Well, that's exactly what happened to multi-billionaire property developers, the Candy brothers, over the weekend. In a tribunal ruling, they were asked to shell out this £4 million. But I know what you're thinking. You may not have much sympathy. If you look at the comment sections on the articles there isn't much sympathy there, and you might have very small violins for those guys. But I'm going to explain how this is going to impact your property investing game. So stay tuned. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. I've been investing in property for 30 years. We put out videos each and every week, all dedicated to keeping you on top of your property investing game. If you haven't already done so, make sure you smash that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you're notified as soon as we upload new videos. So avid viewers of this channel will know that a few months ago, myself and my good friend Andrew Roberts were quoted by the Sunday Times on our views on bounce back loans and the like. And this time we're returning the favour. I'm joined by Andrew. We're going to quote an article here from the Sunday Times about this Candy Brothers case. Andrew, of course, not just a good friend, but a property developer in his own right, and also a management accountant to boot. So, Andrew, you have been looking... Hello, by the way.
Hello, and thank you very much for that warm introduction. I mean, the Sunday Times, our favourite read, especially since we now avidly read it.
Yeah, we've got to see whether we've got a mention.
Yeah, absolutely. Other papers exist, and if you'd like to quote us, we look forward to appearing in your edition soon, and we will quote your paper.
So, okay, let's have a look at the specifics of what's happened to the Candy brothers, famous for their Hyde Park development. Of course, one of the Candy brothers is married to Holly Valance. So if you were a Neighbours fan and enjoyed some pop in the 1990s, you would know who Holly is. Now, Holly, of course, is very upset by this ruling because with having to pay £4 million, that means she's going to have to make do with last season's handbags for a few more years to come. Andrew, can you shed a little bit of light on what's actually gone on here? And then we'll look at how this impacts us as regular property investors. Andrew.
Yes, certainly. Well, to keep it very simple, the property was agreed to be purchased back in the early 2000s.
The one behind you?
Yes, the property right behind me here. Beautiful little property. And on the agreement to purchase this property, the keys were given to one of the brothers. And he decided to basically undertake some works to that property, which involved digging a huge hole, absolutely huge hole, that he put a swimming pool in, and also some tunnels to link other properties which they own. Now, the contract was effectively a straightforward conveyance, an exchange with a delayed completion, and a key undertaking. Several years later, he decided he no longer wished to keep this property and decided to sell it to his brother. And his brother took on the contract and executed the completion through the assignable clause. So that is the transaction in a nutshell. And trying to keep it really simple for our viewers, it's the sort of thing that we all do on a reasonably regular basis as property buyers. Purchase a property, exchange with a delayed completion, and undertake some works and buy the property add value.
But this is a bit extreme, isn't it, Andrew? I mean, I've done this sort of thing before. You might be going in there and doing a quick paint job, maybe replacing the kitchen and bathroom, but extensive basement works to build a 60-foot swimming pool and a cinema and tunnels, in the escape tunnels possibly, to escape from this tax is major works. I mean, it's pretty trusting vendor to hand over the keys without completion and say, yes, go ahead and do all of this stuff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that is part of what the issues are here. It's going back and looking at this from a technical perspective, where the revenues come in from, it's substantial performance of the contract. Now, how do the revenue get to that decision or view? Well, 2003 Finance Act is the important one for the viewers to follow, specifically Part 4, land transactions. And Part 4 refers to contract and conveyance. Section 1, where a contract for a land transaction is entered into, it's generally completed under a conveyance. Now, that sounds pretty normal for most investors, but where this transaction got caught and fell foul was under Section 4, if the contract is substantially performed without having completed. The contract is treated as though it was completed. Now, what is substantial performance? It's where somebody gives you the keys to the property after you've exchanged contracts. Therefore, in this instance, it was substantially performed. But they went further than that, and they dug themselves a great big hole that they're now trying to get out of.
We'll get back to the video in just a moment, but what I wanted to really tell you about was what is the most exciting opportunity in property right now, and that is repurposing defunct commercial buildings to residential use. Now, most people don't really know where to start, what to look for, and how to exploit these opportunities, and that's why I've prepared 90 minutes of free training for you to get you started on this wonderful journey. You can register for this free training at property-workshop.com. Join me on that free training, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the video. So let's try to just translate this from accountant speak into a bit of layman speak, really. Okay, you may exchange contracts and delay the completion until 4 months' time. And at completion, you normally get full control of the property. Now, this is the principle of if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. What they're basically saying is, it doesn't matter whether you say your completion date is in 6 months' time. If you're effectively walking around as though you own the place after exchange of contracts, then the HMRC will deem this transaction to have been completed. That's what substantial performance essentially means. And stamp duty will be payable at that time.
Correct. And if there is a delay between exchange and completion of more than 28 days, you are liable to pay the tax at the point of the exchange of contracts.
Provided you have taken the keys. So, with regular homeowners in chains, of course, there's typical to, the homeowner exchange contracts, and then there's 3-month completion to allow for moving vans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in that situation, the new buyer does not take possession or get keys until completion. So those transactions are safe. This is particularly affecting people who will be doing clever stuff. So it is not uncommon, and we've all done it many times, where we exchange contracts and we negotiate what we call a key undertaking. And a key undertaking allows us to get keys to the property from the vendor on exchange of contracts, and sometimes we can do some works before completion. Now, it's very, very common to pick up a buy-to-let, say, spruce it up with a lick of paint, perhaps a new carpet, some new kitchen, bathrooms, and whatever, get it revalued before completion, and then complete with the benefit of that that increased, enhanced mortgage valuation. Now, the issue is whether there's a stamp duty hit at the time. Now, the scenario that I've described is bread and butter to many, many people. Why is it that the HMRC have gone after these guys? Is it just because of the magnitude of their stamp duty hit and the fact that they're pretty well known?
I don't believe it is. I mean, if we were to look back at the transaction itself, and again, bit of geek speak, Section 43, Paragraph 1 of the Finance Act, Part 4, Land Transactions, Chargeable Interests. a chargeable interest occurred when they exchanged contracts back in the early 2000s. Now, within the within the Finance Act, there is a requirement upon solicitors within Section 3A1 in order to notify a chargeable transaction. Therefore, the selling solicitor and the buying solicitor will have notified or should have notified HMRC of this chargeable interest. Now, that's a concern because you and I have done this in the past, and our solicitors have not always notified HMRC of the transaction going ahead. Therefore, should they have notified at the time? I mean, we've completed on those purchases now, and we've paid the relevant stamp duty. But was that an error on the solicitor's part?
I think a lot can be down to what was actually on the key undertaking document. So the key undertaking document is typically for access to allow for you to get quotes from builders and stuff like that, and draw some plans out and stuff like that. I think in this case, because of the magnitude of the works that were done over such a period of time, which would have had been subject to planning applications, building regulation applications and all of that, which are all public record, there's a massive trail of stuff that's actually gone on.
Mm-hmm. And also on a materiality level, from HMRC's perspective, it's a lot of money to go and pay for all of these COVID and bounce back expenses that they've incurred.
I mean, these are the same Candy brothers who recently sold their £56 million yacht to upgrade it because the old one was too small. So perhaps this is something that that they can bear on their shoulders, shall we say.
Yeah.
To summarize, if you are exchanging contracts and getting a key undertaking to take the keys, a lot will depend on what you actually do with the keys once you've got them. If you actually start knocking the place about, you are acting as though you own the place. If you're going in there just to measure up and do some plans and get some quotes and stuff, and you're not starting before completion, then that presumably is not substantially complete.
I would agree with you on that. It all depends on the nature of why you've had a key undertaking. I mean, with an auction, typically you get a 6-week, the hammer falls, that's exchange of contracts, you get 6 weeks, but you're not charged the stamp duty when the hammer falls, you're charged on completion because there is no key undertaking opportunity at auction. It is only for those people who are going in and undertaking any form of works which changes the value of the property or knocks it about in any way.
So there was another aspect to this, I guess, because one of the brothers bought the property, and that, the exchange contracts on the property, and that contract was assignable, and he
Correct.
did a lot of the works, which was substantial completion. And then he basically assigned that contract to the other brother to actually complete on the purchase and then do works thereafter. So in effect, the reason why it's 4 million, because there was one lot of stamp duty on the first purchase, because that was substantially completed. And there was one lot of stamp duty on the second purchase, or the second assignment. And they were not expecting it to be double, I guess.
Absolutely. It's down to having a good set of lawyers out there who know their stamp duty. And to be perfectly frank, my advice is you actually really need a chartered tax accountant who is familiar with stamp duty or a tax barrister.
And I guess the Candy brothers may be looking for new legal representatives after this little hiccup, shall we say.
Most definitely, I believe.
So, I mean, it's always interesting when you read these articles in the paper. I mean, they're always done. And when you read the comments down below, I mean, the comments are so negative. We'll just flash up some of them that were shown on this Times article. I mean, no one has any sympathy for these guys. But I must stress that these folks, are really started out of nothing. They're creating huge amount of wealth and jobs and homes for people up and down the country. And it's a shame that in the UK we have a tendency to knock these folks, really. And this little ruling can have an impact on all of us as property investors and developers if we don't properly understand what we're actually doing with the property once we've exchanged contracts in that period before exchange and completion. To do a little bit, but not too much, to be foul of this substantial completion rule. Anything to add to that, Andrew?
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, Ranjan. I mean, the thing I would clearly add is, remember, a solicitor is a lawyer. He studies law. He does not study tax, or she, for that matter, do not study tax. They study law. They have a legal duty to report stamp duty to HMRC, but in a very large number of cases, they actually don't know the exemptions and the ways around structuring transactions to be tax efficient. Make sure you take appropriate tax advice.
Yes. So in complicated transactions, very true. It's very good advice there. You need the lawyer advice and a tax specialist to give you the full picture and the full package of stuff that you do. But even with that, I mean, I joke about the Candy's team. Obviously, they've got the best. But even with the best, if it's meaty enough, then the HMRC will have a pop anyway, by the looks of it.
Absolutely. I believe they took this one to task based on substantial performance of the contract, the chargeable interests, and the fact that the contract was binding on the grantor. So I think there was so many legs that the revenue could win on. It was a very weak case for the Candies.
So although the Candies have dug a very, very big hole for themselves here, I don't think they're buried. They'll be back to develop a lot more properties.
I think they're still floating in that pool.
Exactly. Of course, Andrew and I can go on forever punning on this story here, but that's about all we got time for this video. If you haven't already done so, make sure you smash that like button. Also subscribe so you're notified when we update on a weekly basis. Until the next video, that's all from me. Andrew, thank you very much, as always.
Thank you very much too for the invitation as well, and I hope I've tried to keep it fairly simple language for everybody to understand this complex point.
Absolutely. See you guys shortly. Bye for now.